welcome to our event, and we're so grateful to all of you for coming today. And we're celebrating Hui-dong and his painting of the Diamond Mountains. We've entitled this Restoring Korea's Artistic Heritage because of the restoration process that we went through to bring you the painting that we will unveil this evening. So thank you very much. I know how it's kind of a hectic day in New York today, to put it mildly. So I really appreciate everyone for coming. 바쁘신 가운데 이렇게 와주셔서 기쁜 감사드립니다. My name is Theodore Hughes, and I teach modern Korean literature in the Department of East Asian Languages and Cultures. I'm also the director of undergraduate studies in that department, as well as the director for Korean research. I'm going to keep my remarks to a minimum, as we have a number of speakers this evening, including experts on Korean art history and restoration conservation. You have extended biographies of today's speakers in your program. I would like to give you just a brief introduction now of those speakers in order of their appearance. The first will be Jim Chang, who's the director of the Starr East Asian Library here at Columbia. He also serves as the vice president-elect of the Council on East Asian Libraries. Alexis Hagedorn is the head of conservation for the Columbia University Libraries. She serves on the visiting faculty of the Pratt School of Information and Library Science and the Conservation Center of the Institute of Fine Arts at New York University. Haruo Shirane is Shincho Professor of Japanese Literature and Chair of the Department of East Asian Languages and Cultures. He specializes on Japanese literature, visual culture, and cultural history. He's the author of numerous books and has co-edited including co-editing project Inventing the Classics, National Identity, Gender, and Japanese Literature. That book was translated into Korean as 창조된 고전, 일본 문학의 점전 형성과 근대 그리고 젠더, and published by Sommyeon Press. Eleanor Hyun is the curator of the Korean collection at the British Museum. And Eleanor, am I right? You're the first to hold that position?
That's the first one of the positions.
So you are the inaugural curator at the. That's really an important global position to be the head of Korean collection at the British Museum. So we're so happy for Eleanor. She completed her master's degree at Columbia and her PhD at the University of Chicago in art history. She was the recipient of the Jane and Morgan Whitney Fellowship at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Professor Sungmin Kim is here and will talk. She received her PhD from UC Berkeley and is assistant professor of Korean art history at Dartmouth. Her scholarship focuses on pre-modern and early 20th century Korean art and culture. We also have a special guest this evening. I'm very grateful to Amy Lee, Lee Hae-kyung Yasa, who's sitting right here, for accepting our invitation, so kindly accepting our invitation to join us and unveil the restored Hui-dong painting, as well as she will also make some remarks. Amy Lee worked as the Korean Studies librarian at Columbia for 27, do I have that right? 27 years. From 1969 to 1996. She is the author of 나의 아버지 위친왕, My Father, Prince Wichin. She's the granddaughter of King Gojong, the 26th king of the Joseon dynasty, and later emperor of the Great Han Empire of the Korean. We can see many things in Hui-dong's painting, including the modernity of tradition, and of course we can also see a vision of the Diamond Mountains, the Kumgangsan, in the mid-1930s. The painting can now refer to something Hui-dong, who was painting in a colonized but unified Korea, likely did not anticipate in the 1930s, and that is the question of national division and reunification. Most of us haven't been to the Diamond Mountains. The mountains are located in North Korea, and the tourist access that opened up to South Koreans in the early 2000s has been closed. But we've gathered this evening to think about the painting and Hui-dong. And of course, this shows how we can extend the idea of unification to a broader global context and community. A community like the one that is here tonight at the Starr Library, far from the Korean Peninsula, a community that has been brought together by modern Korean art and a great artist, Hui-dong. We have another community, also a diverse and global one, and that is the group of people also brought together by Hui-dong, a group that has dedicated itself in different ways for years to restore this painting, Gumgangsan, the painting that we are here to celebrate tonight. A painting which is one of a series of Hui-dong's works depicting the Diamond Mountains. I believe there are 3 of them. I would particularly like to thank Jim Chang, the director of the Starr Library. Ever since Jim has arrived from UC San Diego at Columbia, he has been a tireless advocate of the Korean collection, which is one of the largest in North America. And his support for the effort to restore the painting Gumgangsan has truly been impressive. Hee-Suk Shin, our Korean Studies librarian, has also been key to the project. So thank you, Jim and Hee-Suk. The Department of East Asian Languages and Cultures at Columbia provided full funding for the restoration. Professor Haruo Shirane, chair of the department, is here today. And I would like to thank him for his unwavering support for Korean Studies at Columbia. Alexis Hagedorn, head of conservation at Columbia, spearheaded the actual restoration project, which was carried out with the utmost care, professionalism, and deep respect for the Korean artistic heritage by Hisashi Higuchi and Jennifer Perry of Asian Paintings Conservation, and they are here with us this evening as well. This project was carried out in close consultation with Eleanor Hyun, whom I mentioned, now of the British Museum, as well as consultation with the well-known conservator Professor Bak Ji-san in Korea. Tonight's event is supported by the Center for Korean Research and the C.V. Starr East Asian Library with the assistance of the Korean Cultural Service New York, the Korea Foundation, and the Department of East Asian Languages and Cultures, as well as the Weatherhead East Asian Institute. And I would like to say that we would not be here right now without the organizational acumen of Ju-Yeon Kim, the CKR program coordinator, who has been working on tonight's event continuously for the past 8 months. Thank you, Ju-Yeon. Where are you? I don't see you. She's back working. There she is in the back. Can we give her a round of applause? Perseverance combined with a sense that we would succeed. I will tell you that what I know about these things I learned from many kind people who extended themselves to me during the years I lived in Korea. I am reminded of something else when I look at and think about Hui-dong's painting, and that is the global Korean community, who has entrusted us with this work of art, and more broadly, with the teaching of and research on Korean history, literature, culture, and language at Columbia. All of us who have come together to work on Korean-related materials at Columbia, at the Center for Korean Research, the Starr Library, and the Department of East Asian Languages and Cultures are very grateful to have been given this trust. Thank you all again for joining us this evening, and please stay after the talks for a reception. We have prepared some delicious food for you, and I hope you enjoy it. And I'd like to turn now to Jim Chang.
On behalf of the CV Starr East Asian Library, I would like to thank everyone for coming to join us for this historical moment of unveiling the restored painting by the famous Korean painter Hui-dong, one of our most important treasures in our collection. I would like to thank Professor Ted Hughes, Director of the Center for Korean Research, for his critical support in the last 3 years assisting the library to restore the painting, and his leadership in organizing today's event with an excellent program everyone will enjoy later. And also, most importantly, I would like to thank to our experts, our conservators, our consultants. Your knowledge, your experience, your professional work saved and restored the glory and the beautiful of this special painting. Thank you. And we all know the money cannot buy everything. However, without money, nothing will happen. For that, I would like to thank Professor Haruo Shirane, the department chair of the Department of East Asian Language and Cultures, and Professor Bob Hines, and the former chair of the ELACs. And your money made this thing happen. Finally, I would like to thank the support of the Columbia University Library Administration, Conservation Department, Art Property, and my colleagues at the Starr Library for the project and the preparing for tonight's event. Please also take a look at the related Hui-dong exhibition in the 2 display cases. One there When here, they tell you about the history and the related special painting prepared by our Korean library, Lee Suk-shin. Thank you.
As the chair of the Department of East Asian Languages and Cultures, I'm very proud that this event could occur. I'm particularly proud of our Korean studies faculty, and if you'll excuse me, I'd like to name them because they're so important. Charles Armstrong in Modern Korean History, he couldn't be here this evening. Ted Hughes, whom you've already heard about, who's done so much, director of the Center for Korean Research. Jung Won Kim, our pre-modernist in Korean history. Carol Schultz, our director of our fine Korean language program. Bong Lee, Song Hee Song, Hyung-gyu Lee, and Eunice Jang, who's just joined us. And we're going to run a tenure track search this fall to bring in another faculty. I'd like to thank them right now for all they've done for this program. When I became chair of the department about 2 years ago, one of the first things that came across my desk was a bill for $33,000. And I was a little bit surprised. I thought, oh, you can buy a lot of books, Korean books, for $33,000. But the more I learned about this project, I realized how much value this project has been. And it's kind of, because it's been such a long road involving so many people, I appreciate it even more today. And I'm really glad that ELAC, our department, could foot the bill on this. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to the specialists in the field and look forward to their presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Columbia University faculty members and staff, and CV Starr East Asian Library director and staffs for preparing this exciting event. And I'm very honored to give a presentation on this very important painting of Hui-dong, now on display here at the CV Starr East Asian Library. And thank you all for coming here and not going to see the Pope. I'm sure the line here is a lot shorter. So, Hui-dong is often called the first Western-style painter of Korea. It also said that when Hui-dong was alive, he was a classic. After he passed away, he became history. And that his life encapsulates the history of Korean modern art, from the last phase of the Joseon dynasty, through the Japanese colonial period, liberation, and the Korean War, to the foundation of the present socio-economic system of South Korea. And he was not only a painter, but also served as a founding member of the Korean Artists Association, as a juror for many national art exhibitions, and later as a member of the Korean National Assembly. Ko's entire 60-year painting career and his other achievements are very impressive. But my talk today will cover 3 points. First, I will first briefly discuss Hui-dong's life, including his family background, associates, and contribution to Korean art history. Then I will discuss the changing meanings and representation of Diamond Mountains, or Keumgangsan in Korean history and art history. Diamond Mountain is called Keumgangsan in Korean, but here I will call it Diamond Mountain for the benefit of our non-Korean audience members. We will also look at the tradition of diamond mountain painting before Hui-dong's time. Third, and finally, I will discuss the significance of diamond mountains to Hui-dong and look at some of the Go's diamond mountain paintings, including the Jinju Dam, or Jinju Waterfall and Pond painting in the CV Starr East Asian Library collection. Hui-dong is a descended from the remarkable Jeju-go Jungin family. The Jungin were a social class in the traditional Korea, falling between the ruling elites called Yangban and the commoners. The Jungin were professional and lower-ranking officials, including foreign language interpreters, medical doctors, legal clerks, accountants, geomancers, court painters, and scribes. The Jeju-go clan was one of these prominent Jungin families. Hui-dong's grandfather, Go Jin-pung, who was a Chinese language interpreter, had 3 sons, all of whom became official foreign language interpreters. They were Go Young-ju, Young-hee, and Young-chul. And Go's grandfather, Jin-pung, his uncle Young-ju, and Hui-dong's father, Young-chul, passed the Chinese language examination and served as interpreter. So the Go Young-chul, who was the father of Hui-dong, in 1881, he had gone to Tianjin, China, as one of 20 students accompanying Kim Yun-shik. There, he learned English language, making him one of the first English speakers in Korea. So, in 1883, he visited the United States as a member of Min Young-ik's Korean mission. So you can see his photo of Min Young-chul, Go Young-chul there. He also had an interest in art and participated in viewing art and antiquities in his poetry society. Hui-dong was born in 1886. His well-traveled father inspired Hui-dong's interest in arts and foreign culture. At the age of 13, Hui-dong entered Hansong French School, where he learned French and Western culture. There, he also saw the French ceramist Léopold Rémillon, who sketched the French language teacher Émile Martel. Hui-dong was amazed at the fluid manner in which Rémillon's charcoal strokes portrayed figures. And it was from these 2 Frenchmen that Go became acquainted with Western painting, and it was his acquaintance that influenced him to later go to Tokyo. In 1904, after 4 years at the Hansong French School, Go was appointed a junior officer at the Office of Mining, Hwanghaku. However, after the Ulsa Protectorate Treaty was signed in 1905, making Korea a protectorate of Japan, Hui-dong, now 19 years old, decided that working as a government officer would not be meaningful. He wrote, "The country had lost its dignity. There was nothing one could do. Thus, I let go of all that was in my mind and decided to immerse myself in the world of painting and drinking." Hui-dong, by then, at the age of 22, began to study painting under 2 Joseon court painters, An Jung-sik and Jo Seok-jin. So this is Go's painting of Mifu, Bowing to Rock, that Go painted in 1907. This is one of the earliest paintings Go did under An Jung-sik and Jo Seok-jin. The traditional method of learning painting was to copy old masters' paintings. According to its inscription, Go painted this painting imitating his teacher An Jung-sik's painting of the same subject. The painting shows the typical way of painting training for Joseon painters. However, from the beginning of Hui-dong was not very happy with the traditional way of learning to paint. In fact, in 1934, Hui-dong bitterly complained that the traditional Korean painters were unaware of the concept of creativity, with all things Chinese being the ideal and no attempt to go beyond that. So please go ahead and read it. Because of the time limit, I'm gonna stop reading it. So from this statement, we see that Hui-dong did not approve of the traditional method of learning how to paint by copying the old master's painting, and he disdained the conservative and pretentious attitude toward painting espoused by the learned appreciators of art. In 1909, Hui-dong went to Japan to attend the Tokyo School of Fine Arts and became the first Korean person to study Western style painting. There, Go studied under Professor Kuroda Seiki, who studied in Western style painting in France. And after he returned to Japan, he established the Department of Western Style Painting at the Tokyo School of Fine Arts, teaching the styles of the neoclassicist French Academy. From 1909 to 1915, Hui-dong enrolled in the Western Style Painting Department and learned oil painting. 3 of his oil portraits still exist. Self-portrait with a hat was painted in 1915 at his age of 30. All the graduates had to leave their self-portraits to the school, and this was Go's graduation work, which is in the collection of the school, now called the Tokyo National University of Fine Arts and Music. Here, we see a young Go Hee-dong wearing a traditional blue Korean jacket and a traditional hat. Knowing his painting would represent Korea to future students and faculty of the school, Go proudly identified himself as a Korean literati by wearing traditional Korean attire. 2 other self-portraits from the same year, and now in the National Museum of Korea, contemporary art in Korea. So I will skip over the descriptions. After 6 years of schooling in Japan, Hui-dong returned to Korea. He soon established himself as a pioneer in the incorporation of Western styles into Korean painting. In the colonial period and into the post-liberation era, he became a giant in the Korean artistic community, heading artist organizations, organizing and sponsoring exhibitions, leading artistic exchange delegations to foreign countries, and even serving as a prominent figure in various political parties. However, while he was the first Korean artist to paint in Western style, Go's interest in Western art was selective. He noted, although I learned Western style painting, I was more interested in its scientific theory, but I was not attached to Western painting itself. What fascinated him was the scientific approach and the methodology underlying Western painting, which involves close observation of nature and its recreation by the artist. In fact, after 1926, Go stopped oil painting. Instead, he returned to the traditional Oriental painting media of ink and colors on paper or silk. He introduced new kind of art which synthesized Western painting method and techniques with Korean traditional painting. To Go Hee-dong, 2 things were very important. First was to honor the unique particularity of the painting subject or landscape, and second was the creativity of the artist. Although Go painted many subjects through his life, he favored Diamond Mountain landscape, which I will discuss later in the talk. After 6 years as an artist, Go died in 1965 at the age of 80. In 2005, the National Trust rescued Go Hee-dong's house/studio, in which he had lived and worked for 41 years. The house was slated for demolition, but instead, after 4 years of renovation, it was restored and now serves as Go Hee-dong's gallery. There, he had lots of gatherings with his friends, and Go's relationship with his friends were very important because these friends were important and influential figures in the history of Korean art and Korea history. One of the Go Hee-dong's lifelong friends was like-minded Oh Se-chang. Like Go Hee-dong, Oh Se-chang came from an illustrious Jungin family, the Haeju Oh clan. Oh Se-chang's father, Oh Kyung-seok, was a Chinese language interpreter and also art collector and enlightened intellectual. Likewise, Oh Se-chang became an intellectual, nationalist, and independence fighter during the colonial period. In the context of art, Oh Se-chang was an inavid calligrapher, art connoisseur, and art historian who wrote a very important book called Keunyuk Sewajin, Biographies of Korean Artists. Because of their similar Jungin background and mutual interest in art, even though Oh Se-chang was 20 years older than Go Hee-dong and Oh Se-chang were close throughout their lives. Another friend is worthy of mention is Choi Nam-seok, who was a prominent poet, publisher, historian, and leading member of the Korean independence movement. Like Oh Se-chang and Hui-dong, Choi Nam-sun came from a Jumin family and studied in Japan. Choi published Korea's first modern magazine, and when he did that, the first issue, Go Hui-dong did the illustration for him. So Choi Nam-sun traveled to Diamond Mountain and found it to be a very meaningful and symbolic place which could restore the nationalist pride of the Korean people. Go Hui-dong did the same, as we will discuss more later in the talk. Another of Go's friends was Chun Hyung-pil, who was 20 years his junior. This is picture from 1938 when the Bohagak, the former name of the Gansong Art Gallery, opened. The Bohagak opened with a collection of the young Korean collector Chun Hyung-pil, who strove to preserve Korean art treasures and masterpieces and prevent them from leaving the country. Mr. Chun Hyung-pil himself is a critical figure in Korean art history, but Go Hui-dong was close associate with Mr. Chun and helped him as an artistic advisor in compiling his collection. So, Go Hui-dong and his friends like to drink and discuss art and politics and more. Here's a painting of a gathering of Go Hui-dong and his friends. According to Go Hui-dong's son, this is a gathering of a type called one-dish gathering, like a potluck types. So here, the three of them are identified his son, Go Hui-dong's son. So with a long beard is Go Hui-dong here. And next to Go Hui-dong is Choi Nam-sun, who is looking at the serving bowl. And next to Choi Nam-sun is Oh Se-chang. And these three figures have been identified by Go's son, but I think one on the far left appears to be the painter Lee Do-young. And here's a picture of Lee Do-young that looks somewhat like the figure in the painting. And Lee Do-young was Go's lifelong friend, and Go and Lee sometimes collaborate on painting. With these friends, Go and Lee sometimes participated in critical artistic, cultural, and political activities. Now, having briefly outlined the political and stylistic context of Korean painting during Go's early years, I would like to discuss the history of Diamond Mountain and paintings depicting it. So, Kumgangsan, or Diamond Mountain, is located on the east coast of North Korea and is one of the best known mountains in the country. The name Kumgangsan literally means diamond, or the Sanskrit word Vajra, meaning diamond or thunderbolt. A Vajra is Buddhist ritual object representing firmness of spirit and spiritual power. The mountain consists of almost entirely of granite, a very hard stone weathered over centuries into a wide variety of shapes, including over 12,000 picturesque stone formations. Kumgangsan has many different names. Kumgangsan in spring, Bongnaesan in summer, Punaksan in autumn, and Daegorsan in wintertime. Diamond Mountain has been considered a sacred mountain since the late Goryeo dynasty, though its significance has changed over time. During the Goryeo dynasty, it was believed that Dharmagata Bodhisattva resided on Diamond Mountain. Therefore, many Buddhist temples and monasteries are sited on the mountain, and it has long been an important pilgrimage site. Even Chinese envoys to Korea made time to visit and pay homage at the Buddhist temples and enjoy the mountain's scenic beauties. During the Joseon dynasty, when Confucian became the ruling ideology of Korea and Buddhism was suppressed, Diamond Mountain was a place for Confucian scholars and artists to enjoy scenic beauty and receive inspiration for their poems, travels, journals, and artworks. From the 18th century on through the Joseon dynasty, the mountain became a critical subject of tribute landscape painting. In the colonial period, it became a physical symbol of Korea's adamantine national spirit and integrity. Ironically, despite its spiritual and nationalistic significance to the Korean people, Diamond Mountain was simultaneously a famous tourist site for the Japanese. So, Diamond Mountain is commonly divided into three areas: Inner Kumgang, Naekumgang, Outer Kumgang, and Sea Kumgang or Haekumgang, each with different geological and topographical features. I will now show the typical traveling itinerary of Diamond Mountain. So this is where the preparation starts. At the Dambalyeong Ridge, people kind of looking at the Diamond Mountains and getting ready for their trips. So because of time, I will just point out some important sites. So here's the Chang'an Buddhist Monastery. The travelers and move to the Myeonggyong Terrace and go to another Buddhist monastery, Pyomunsa, and Jeongyangsa, and go to the Manpok-dong, where Manpok water falls. And there are 8 ponds, and Jinjudan is one of them. And that's Pirobong is the Bairochana Peak, which is the highest peak in the Kumgang Mountains. So these are kind of quintessential area for the Diamond Mountains sites. And then people can move to the outer Kumgang and go further to see Kumgang or Haekumgang. So I will show the pictures of the sites and as well as some tribute landscape paintings of the first stop, Chang'ansa Buddhist Monastery, and move to Myeonggyongdae and Pyomunsa and Manpok-dong, Manpok waterfalls, and the Bairochana Peak or Pirobong. And they moved to the Waekumgang, outer Kumgang, and there are upper 8 pools, Sangpaldam and 9 Dragon Fall, the Guryongpokpo. So this always has been the great subject for both traditional and contemporary, both South and North Korean artists. So this is the most well-known tribute painting of Diamond Mountain, called Complete View of Diamond Mountains by Jung Sun. Here, he encapsulates the Diamond Mountain in a circular kind of composition, using spiky needle-like brush strokes to depict Diamond Mountain's granite rocks and cliffs in the light area on the right side, and wet brush strokes to depict the leafy foliage in an almost equally balanced dark area on the left side. It is thought to symbolize the yin and yang philosophy of Taoism. So we kind of briefly look at the kind of paintings before Hui-dong's time. And Hui-dong and Diamond Mountains. Go visited Diamond Mountain several times. He first went there in 1911 with his painter friend Lee Do-young. In 1918, after the establishment of the Korean Artists Association, he visited the mountain with its leading members, including Oh Se-chang, An Jun-sik, and Jo Seok-jin, who went back several more times and expressed his admiration for the mountain as a mass of pure beauty. During the colonial period, when Go painted Diamond Mountain, the mountain had literally become a mountain of contradiction. Promoted for its superficial visual spectacle by some, and for its profound patriotic spiritually by others. The colonial government was keen to develop a tourism industry in Korea, which included a Diamond Mountain sightseeing program. In 1931, the Japanese colonial government and Honggosan Electric Railway Incorporation completed a railway called the Kumgangsan Line. And this shortened the journey to Diamond Mountain from Seoul, which used to take 1 month, now to 1 week. In addition to this railway, a lot of modern commercial lodgings, such as the Kumgang Hotel, was built in and around the Diamond Mountain, and this brought numerous tourists, Korean, Japanese, and Westerners to Diamond Mountain. Meanwhile, many Korean intellectuals and artists deplored the idea that Diamond Mountains had become a mere sightseeing site, while losing its symbolic meaning among Koreans. Korean nationalists considered the Diamond Mountains to be a symbol of the Korean spirit, and these Korean intellectuals, artists, and writers traveled to Diamond Mountain and published their travel journey and sketches of Diamond Mountains in newspaper. Among them, Choi Nam-sun was one of the most influential figures. he claimed the Diamond Mountain was an encyclopedia of beauty and a unique and peerless miracle of the world, and that having the Diamond Mountain in Korea was Korea's happiness and heaven's blessing. Che argued that Diamond Mountain was the physical representation of Korean mind, as well as sacred and sublime presence that intimately represents Korean life, culture, and history. Hui-dong also shared this feeling and ideology with Chen and Son. As mentioned earlier, even though he was Korea's first Western-style painter, Go sought the most Koreanness in paintings. And he wrote these long writings. And he apparently took some Western criticism of traditional Korean art to heart. As shown by these statements, Go struggled to find a unique and venerable Koreanness, and believed that the role of Korean painters was to express Korea's own beauty and accompanying spirits. From 1927, then Go stopped painting Western oil painting and returned to traditional media. However, even though he picked up the traditional materials, that is carbon-based ink and colors, and painted on traditional sized silk or mulberry paper using the traditional method, Go did not follow the traditional Eastern style or philosophy of painting. Instead, he adopted Western style painting approach and tried to produce realistic or objective representation of the scenery using a broad vocabulary of techniques than the earlier painters. So let's look at some of Diamond Mountain's paintings. From the early 1930s, Go began his series of Diamond Mountain landscape painting, which lasted throughout his life. In the 1930s, Go made sketches and painted each site faithfully and realistically. And later in the 1940s, when he was not able to travel to Diamond Mountain any longer due to political turbulence, Go continued to paint Diamond Mountain sites based on his memory and earlier sketches. So these are we are going to see some of the Diamond Mountain paintings, and most of his extant Diamond Mountain paintings are from 1940, at his age 62. In this painting of Ongnyo Peak, Ongnyo-bong, Go captures its granite peaks with repeated powerful and lively vertical brush strokes. As he stated in his inscription, flashing back over my past journey, bizarre and astonishing scenery arose before my eyes. I soothed my troubled mind by painting this. Another painting from the same year of 1947 depicts Samson Rock in Outer Diamond Mountains. Towering sharp and jagged peaks appear to be almost fantastically bizarre. Yet, compared with this photograph of Samson Rocks, the rock in this painting very closely mimic the actual profiles of the rocks. So even though Go painted this Samson Rocks from his memory, he must have had a very vivid memory from his frequent visits and close observations or repeated practice of painting the sites. Among the many sites of the Diamond Mountain, Go's favorite subject was Jinju-dam, Jinju waterfalls and a pond. One of the 8 ponds in Manpok waterfall. There are 2 extant Go paintings of Jinju Pond in Korea. So these are the 2 paintings now in Korea. Both paintings are painted on paper. The one on the left was painted in 1940, and then on the right is in 1946. And compared to these paintings in subject matter and composition, we can identify the subject of the East Asian library painting to be Jinju-dam in Diamond Mountain. Let's look at the painting in more details. The painting depicts a waterfall in a rocky ravine with leafy bushes, a pond below, and faraway mountains in the distance. Go's quick, bold brush strokes effectively represent rough granite ravines. On the lower right of the painting, there is a 2-line inscription saying, it says, painted on summer day in the year of Kapsul, which is 1934, by Chunbo Hui-dong. and 2 seals. In fact, if we compare this painting with a black, so this is where Jinju Dam is, in Manpok-dong. And in fact, if we compare this painting with a black and white photograph of Jinju Pond from 1930s, we could clearly see Go tried very hard to depict the site faithfully to its actual features. Another point I would like to address is a color. This painting is done in black ink with light colors on silk. However, as silk ages and is exposed to light, it becomes yellowish, and the colors are faded. So it is somewhat challenging to know the original colors. This painting from 1940 may better reflect both color palettes. If the 1934 painting is corrected, using current Photoshop technology for the effects of aged silk and faded colors, then the original may have looked more like this. If so, we see a very dramatic painting that owes much to early 20th century Western art, and perhaps even gives a nod to the flattened graphic clarity of black and white photographs. It is a bold, dynamic, somewhat masculine rendition with much space devoted to hard, deeply shadowed rocks and little to soft foliage. The 1940s version, by contrast, is softer and more feminine, with more foliage and more restful water and sky, and a much more traditionally Asian landscape composition. This 1946 version of the same scene is highly impressionistic with little attention to detail, reminiscent of traditional amateur literature painting. Nonetheless, the bold dynamism and little negative space are perhaps more Western in approach. In any case, this different interpretation of the same scene shows that Go was quite experimental. But despite his Western objectivism, as Go lost physical contact with a mountain and worked from diminishing memories, the painting necessarily became less observed and more imagined, with reference to traditional Asian landscape models. The East Asian level Jinju Dam painting is significant in 2 ways. First, even though we know that Go began his Diamond Mountain landscape painting in the early 1930s, no painting that we knew to be of the Diamond Mountain scene from the 1930s existed to see his early painting style. That is, until this painting was identified as a Diamond Mountain scene. However, as we place Go's 3 Jinju Pond paintings side by side, we see his experimentation and development of styles. Therefore, this 1934 painting is a very important work to show what Go's Diamond Mountain painting was like in his early period, when he was closest to his mountain experience and to his Western training. And second, and more interesting fact, is that the Jinju Pond painting is highly likely Go's Kumgang Oje, were 5 subjects in Diamond Mountains, which he displayed in the 1934 Korean Artists Association exhibition. The painting is only known by this picture from a contemporaneous 1934 조선일보 newspaper. The picture was included in the review of the exhibition. Art critic An Seok-young commented that Hui-dong's painting has little effect from color, but captures the form of the object with the drawing, and also wrote that Go sets a challenge for Korean traditional painting. Unfortunately, other than An's comment and very poor photograph, no written record of Go's 1934 exhibition painting was found. No measurement of size and no medium is known. So what I did was to take the newspaper photograph and the painting transparency. So this is transparency from the 조선일보, and this is one from the Starr East Asian Library collections. And I kind of
together.
So, as you can see, they are essentially identical. So I would say this painting is indeed the painting that Korean art historians long thought to be lost. This painting was donated by a Korean student group to East Asian Library in the 1930s. Further investigation on the cultural biography of this Jinju Dam painting needs to be done. Okay. In sum, Hui-dong began his Diamond Mountain landscape with two agendas in mind. Along with other nationalist intellectuals, he believed that Diamond Mountain is the symbol of Korean spirit and pride. Also, with this early Diamond Mountain landscape, characterized by close observation and unfettered style, he actualized the essence of his painting philosophy. That is, the particularity of the subject and the creativity of the painter. The Jinju Dam painting here is a very important piece of understanding Hui-dong and his work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was such an incredible talk, and the work that you put into that, I'm so grateful to you. At this point, we'd like to go ahead and show the painting. So, if Amy would step forward, and would you like to? I think we're ready. And just go ahead and then comment after.
It's all right, I think I can. I'm so happy and thank you very much for restoring this beautiful painting. And when I first started work here in 1969, I didn't know there was two Korean paintings hanging in front of the top of our door. And my friend came over and said, "Do you know you have Hui-dong and Hui-dong's painting?" I said, "What?" Then I looked at it, I saw it, and that was on my pride as a Korean ever since. And time has passed, and it was moved around after renovation. It had to be taken off from there. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too much. And I'm so happy, and thank you very much for restoring this paintings. And thank you very much for finding out. I didn't know, that's who brought it and when it was painted. And thank you very much.
I'd like to thank Dr. Hughes for inviting me to speak this evening. And I'd like to describe for you the work of the Conservation Department at Columbia and how we care for artworks and artifacts in the university library's collections. After that, I'll describe the conservation treatment that was carried out for our painting by the artist Hui-dong that we've just heard so many interesting things about, thanks to Dr. Kim. The Columbia University Library's Preservation Department is one of the oldest programs in North America to care for library collections. The Central Department of Conservators performs conservation treatment, analyzes documents, and monitors light, temperature, and relative humidity in all of the library's collection storage areas. These collections span 22 libraries in the system and include not only books and documents, but also paintings, sculpture, and ethnographic objects. The C.V. Starr East Asian Library is one of 5 separate distinctive and special collections in the group. The conservation staff at Columbia specializes in treating paper-based collections, including rare books, prints, and artworks such as this hand scroll, which was carefully mended and restored to readability in our lab. The library's collections are in frequent demand for loan to museums across the country and around the world. And when items travel, conservators prepare mounts for display and oversee packing and transport. This example of a medieval manuscript from the Rare Book and Manuscript Library required humidity-controlled packaging to keep it stable during transport. Conservation of three-dimensional objects is a distinct specialty, so our team understands requirements for care and safe storage and can fabricate housings such as the one on the right to preserve artifacts and make them easy to access for study. The one on the left we didn't do. That was the before. However, we only intervene to treat items that we are trained to work on. So when objects, textiles, or paintings require treatment, we help to identify the correct specialist to carry out this work. This Bunraku figure in the collections at Starr was treated for us by an expert in objects conservation based in New York, and that was Samantha Alderson of the American Museum of Natural History. The painting Kungang Oche by Hui-dong represented a special example of a treatment that the libraries would outsource to a specialist conservator. The university's records show, as we've heard, that the painting was donated to Starr in the 1930s by the Columbia Korean Students Group. When this painting was first viewed in the conservation department, it exhibited tears, losses, and staining. And I think you can see here some of the major areas of loss. There are other smaller ones that it's probably hard to see, but this is obviously before the treatment began. To properly care for this important work by a Korean artist, the involvement of many people was critical. Mr. Jim Chang, the director of CV Starr East Asian Library and the custodian of this painting, was eager to improve its condition. Professor Theodore Hughes of the East Asian Languages and Cultures Department at Columbia gave much of his time to the planning of this treatment, and his department's financial support made the treatment possible. The New York firm Asian Paintings Conservation, with principal conservator Hisashi Higuchi and partner Jennifer Perry, the East Asian Paintings Conservator at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, were available to provide the expertise needed to improve the painting's condition. The availability of talented specialists in the New York area meant that this artwork did not have to travel in its fragile state. That was very important to all of us. Dr. Eleanor Hyun and Dr. So-young Lee, curators with specialized knowledge of Korean art history, served as consultants on this project, kindly sharing their expertise in meeting with the conservators and advising us on aesthetic choices. So it's my privilege to describe the transformative treatment carried out by my colleague, Mr. Higuchi. I'll first give you a brief overview of the entire treatment, and then I'll discuss just a few of the steps in more detail. So during the painting's treatment in the Asian Paintings Conservation Studio in New York, it was first gently cleaned and staining was reduced. Losses in the original were filled with new material. A new wooden undercore panel was prepared by the conservator and given multiple linings. This is important because a painting on fragile silk, such as this one, always will remain sensitive to changes in humidity. So if the humidity is very dry, it can contract. With too much humidity, it expands, and this could even cause tearing or very serious damage. So the multiple linings that the conservator applied will help it to withstand fluctuations as much as possible. So we're seeing it before application to the panel here. So after the stage that we're seeing, this is a during treatment photograph. After this, new silk borders needed to be applied, and then the painting could be adhered to the panel that I've just described and inserted into its frame. So here we can see an example of the conservator's sensitive treatment of one of the areas of loss. You can see that new material has been added in the lower photograph on the right to fill the missing areas. And it's been toned to blend visually with the overall image of the painting. At the same time, it's just visible. So with careful, close examination, an informed viewer is able to distinguish between new and old material. That's an important goal in the treatment. None of the original paint was touched up in any way during the course of the treatment, but in some areas there was loose paint that had to be very carefully re-adhered. It's very delicate, painstaking work. The work of our group of collaborators was especially important in the choice of the silk borders and their color. Under the suggestion of our consultants, Mr. Higuchi discussed the optimal silk border with his colleague in Korea, Professor Bak Ji-sun, who generously provided her opinion for us, that a plain weave silk would be the most appropriate replacement, since we could not replicate the original, and also because this painting was a modern work. And the experts in our group agreed with this suggestion. And in carrying out this plan, we were again very fortunate in the generosity of Professor Park, who kindly shared with us some of her own silk that had been hand-woven in Korea for projects of her own that she felt would be a suitable aesthetic replacement. The opinions of the art historians in our group were solicited as to the correct color that the conservator would dye the new silk for the outer borders. The choice of color was based upon a celadon green color of the old silk that was revealed during treatment. This was an area that was not exposed to light, so as the mountings were taken off, you could see what the color had been. In addition, an inner border silk, and we can see it here, was chosen to reflect the pattern of the existing one. A new frame was created by the conservator, but the old frame components that had been removed have been saved and carefully stored should they be needed for future study, and they're here in the Starr East Asian Library with the painting. The painting will be hung in a prominent and environmentally suitable location, the Crest Reading Room of the CV Starr East Asian Library. The collaboration of an international group of scholars and conservators made the project to treat Kumgang Oche a truly global effort. I'm grateful that thanks to the support of the East Asian Languages and Cultures Department at Columbia and the participation of so many experts, we could obtain such a skillful and sensitive treatment, allowing for us to care for the important artwork that has been entrusted to us. Thank you.
Wow, there are a lot of people here. You can't tell from when you're sitting in the front, so thank you for all coming. Can you all hear me? Great. It's always actually a pleasure to come back to Columbia because as an alumna of the college and the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, it's always like coming back home, so that's quite nice. And I was really honored when I was approached to consult on this project for that reason. And also now coming back with time and distance, the memories of toiling away in this library and in Avery have gotten hazier, so it's always the good memories that are sort of left, which is always nice. So I'm just going to briefly, because following these really wonderful presentations of the historical background of coal and the process of the conservation, I'm just going to speak very briefly on some of the conversations that I had with Hisashi Higuchi and sort of unveil kind of the conversations that happen before you do conservation treatments and reframing and remounting and the issues that are often raised in these conversations and then the decisions that follow from them. So here again is a picture of the before and the after, and you see that there's quite a difference, thankfully, and that the main concern of any kind of conservation project, or the word that came to mind when I was thinking about my talk today, was suitability or appropriateness. What is suitable, what is appropriate when you sort of intervene in conserving and remounting and reframing a work. And there are different levels of things that you have to be concerned with: the suitability of intervention. How much do you do to a work? How much do you want to conserve and place in? And that's what Alexis so wonderfully talked about in showing the in-painting and how much you want to cover and how much you want to show when viewers see this, what kind of work has been done. And then the suitability in terms of the art historical accuracy of these new remountings and the conservation that you're doing. So in this, you see this before and after, and you can tell that we haven't really moved so far away from the actual frame and the frame and the mounting that was done before. And I'll briefly talk about why. Here, what's often interesting is that when you look at objects as an art historian or in books and even on the internet, you're often seeing objects like this, paintings without their frames, without the mountings. Always it's just the painting itself. So oftentimes we're often not trained to think about the mounting because it's not really presented to us when we study them. And it's only when you go to museums or you see them in exhibitions that the mounting and the frame becomes much more prevalent to our experience of viewership. But in these kinds of presentations, like I'm showing you here, or in the books that you look at when you look at reproductions of objects, the frame and the mounting is often excluded, which makes it then harder to sort of decide what you want to do. So then going back and doing the research and thinking about the paintings, again, the one image that I found online from the Sunwoo University that Professor Kim talked about also did not show its current framing device, so I don't actually know what its current frame and mounting looks like. And this one that's in Korea is in the Hui-dong Home Museum, and this is in some sort of mounting with the frame. So that gives us a better clue in types of mounting techniques that are used for his works. And then I thought we can do a little bit of thought process, the thought experiment. Because this painting was painted in 1934 and Hui-dong in 1924, although he's the first painter to have been trained in Western painting techniques and oils, in 1925 he decides that when he comes back to Korea and he's in Korea that he wants to now only paint with traditional inks, and so he sort of abandons his Western oil painting kind of materials. And with that, then you can think, oh, is a traditional mounting more appropriate for this type of painting? And so this is sort of the thought experiment that I'm showing here, is that I just superimposed the Hui-dong painting in what would be more of a traditional mounting style for, say, a Joseon period painting. And you can see how very different the experience would be if the mounting was this way versus what we see right here. So you do see how the frame really affects the way people view and interact with objects. And then, but we, in the end, decided to keep, I shouldn't even have this picture, I should just keep on pointing this way. Look over here, because this is obviously the better, this is not the reproduction. And one of the reasons behind we decided to keep it in the same style of framing and mounting that it was in before is because we found the record that it had come into the collection in the 1930s. So this older style, excuse me, that the original frame and the mounting was therefore age appropriate or era appropriate, because we knew that it was maybe not from 1934, but it was actually from the 30s. So this really reflects the framing styles of that period. So we thought, instead of trying to do something maybe that would be might be beautiful but not actually accurate, we decided to keep with the mounting and the frame. And then if you do look back at some of these older, these are some newspapers of the 1930s showing different kinds of exhibitions like Professor Kim had shown, and you do see that their frames were used. So it wasn't that during this time period, obviously, this frames weren't used, it was only this traditional style. So it gives us, in having these conversations, sort of an assurance that we're going in the right, suitable art historical situation. And you see here, it's just another one of these exhibitions from the 1930s. And then again, it was about color. So now we have to make choices about what kinds of colors would be appropriate. And therefore it makes me think about, not only do you have to be appropriate art historically and for the historic time period of the piece, but also you have to be appropriate in the choices you make for the current state of the object. You can't be thinking about the painting. I didn't even know that we were going to do this, but Professor Kim's, in her photoshopping of this painting to what might have been the original colors, if we had had made those choices to that color scheme, then that might not be appropriate and suitable for actually the current state of this painting, which has aged, as all of us do with time. So with that, and seeing that the original color of the silk was more like this darker top green that's in this slide, which was closer to the color of the original silk that hadn't been affected by the light. We thought if you did put that kind of border, that border on it, which is what I'm showing here, versus what Hisashi Higuchi did, which is he brought the tone down a little bit so that it would actually be a better sort of color fit with the actual painting. And so you see here is what he's done. Again, you should just look right here. You should see what he's done right here. So it's not as green, it's not as brilliant, but that's because it's a better pairing for the current state of the painting. So then you have to also think about the suitability of the choices you're making, not for maybe the original painting in its original state, but what you have right now. And so that was the reasons behind what has now become this incredibly beautiful painting. And I'm so proud to have been part of this consultation team. And the other thing I was just thinking about with this whole project was that not only was it global in the terms of the team that was around it, but the painting itself is obviously a meeting of Hui-dong's Korea West, his own kind of global moment, and the frame also represents that with a wooden frame, a Western style type of frame with an inner silk border that is more of a traditional East Asian thing. So there's been sort of a globalness to this painting from its very existence to the project that we have today. So thank you so much.
So much. We do have some time for questions. So if anyone would like to ask, you can ask a question of a specific presenter and that person can kind of come up and respond.
In the library.
Yeah.
I think you know that answer better.
You want me to do that, Jim?
Yeah. According to what we know is we just find inside library, only records we have now is donate to the library by the Korean student group in the 1930s. We don't have exact dates yet. Yeah. Amy, you want to say something? You've been here a long time. Do you know? Yeah. Yeah.
As I told you before, when I came here in 1969, I saw the painting hanging there. Then I asked the people who were here at the Columbia around 1930s. They said that they donated a lot of Korean books to try to open the Korean section of a library here. So I think with that, a lot of books and the painting all came. So that's two very important paintings. One is Hui-dong's, and the other one is Ida, Kim Eun-ho's lady in a wedding. So it's downstairs. I don't know if it's still downstairs.
Yes.
Yes, it's hanging there now. Yes?
Well, actually, it's kind of related to this. I have actually a question for Professor Kim. During your research, did you find any kind of clue as to how the painting left Korea and came to New York City? If I think of an international student coming all the way to study here, I cannot imagine them bringing a masterpiece like that. So did you find anything that gave us any kind of clue?
Well, thanks for addressing that issue, which I am still kind of struggling to find out more. So because of time, I did not really show this, but I have a couple of images to show. I had a very similar questions. When did they come to the East Asian Library collection? Why Colombia? And how did they students, under colonial period, like Japanese, occupation, that Korean students had a fundraising and donated the work to the museum. The collection. So, and thanks to Korean Studies Library in Shin actually gave me some tips to where to look for, and there I found the Korean student bulletins, which is from like 1920 some years, and there I found really interesting articles. And let's see, and this is the picture that this Korean student federations had gatherings in New York, and there are many other kind of these gatherings in Chicago and LA and other places. So there were body of student groups, Korean student groups, and the second one was this one from 1931. How can I? Here. And this is say 1931. Korean Culture Center established at Columbia, and long dream of Korean students realized the committee plans to make it the finest and best of the kind in America. Okay. And there's also here Korean Culture Center established at Columbia, and then they kind of ask for donations and support. And I also found a very interesting kind of article here. It's from 1933. And the Orient, I think it's over here. An exhibition of painting by Miss Crane. I haven't identified who she is, who has been devoting her talent to painting Korean scenery, was held recently at the Donga Daily News building, Seoul. And if I kind of tell you just the kind of Hui-dong connections, Hui-dong used to be a journalist and wrote columns at Donga-ilbo. And here, and this exhibition, Korea under the joint auspices of the Columbia University Club of Seoul and the Columbia University Korean Library Association of the Korea. The receipts will be used to purchase books for the Korean Library of Columbia University. So I can kind of see, not the exact link, but I can see the hints here and there about Columbia University Library and Korean Student Associates, and art exhibition of the Miss Crane in Donga, ilbo buildings, and also Leah, the management, collective management. She also informed me that Kimono's painting, very like Kimono's painting, was also donated to Harvard University about the same time. So I requested, I sent an email to the registrar there to find out if they have the exact date of the donation. That would kind of give more confirmation about that. So that was my findings so far.
Yes, in the catalog resume of the artist's work, where does this painting rank compared to other images depicted of Diamond?
Is looking for his catalog reasoning. How does this work rank compared to other of the same subject?
Oh, the rank.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a very difficult question to answer about ranking. I would say
How does it, I'll rephrase the question. How does it compare
compared to
the other images?
images
Yes.
of Diamond Mountains, I would say is, as I said, this is the only dated from 1930s. And so it kind of shows, I think it's very hard to kind of rank or evaluate the works because he kind of developed his style from 1930s to late 1950s in very different ways, from more kind of realistic and illusionistic to more abstract. But I would say this is very critical piece to understand the very early kind of style of his painting, the landscape paintings. So.
I also have a question for Professor Kim. Thank you for your talk tonight. My question is, I remember, if I remember correctly, is that at one point in your talk you mentioned that this was the depiction more feminine, and the other was more masculine. It seems that you imply some gender embedded readings of these works. I wonder, can you tell us more about why you use those terms to describe this work?
Okay, when I meant like. So I described this painting was more kind of young or like masculine, and this one is more feminine. And I kind of apply the yin and yang kind of theory in Taoist ideas, being more fluid and dark and kind of muddy, and so this one has more kind of leafy foliage kind of parts and more kind of open space and waters, while this one has lots of like kind of rocky, kind of hard and darker. And that's what I meant. I didn't have any issues or on gender.
We have time for one more question, and then we can have, if you have additional questions, you can ask them at the reception. Do you have a, yes?
There was ultimately in the Tungang amount, what you call it, the route, how you get into the mountain. Where did you get that, and what time frame does it refer to?
It usually according to the travel journeys. You mean in 1930s or during the Joseon Dynasty?
No, you're referring.
The map.
Oh, map. Oh.
Joseon map.
So is it today still the case that people go through that route?
I think this is the kind of the route from 1930s. So yes, 1930s is actually a Japanese railway map. So they get off at the Naegeumgang stations and go around this way, following this path. Or then you can take this way. So there is like not one way of going, but you can take a Naegeumgang route or Waegeumgang or Haegeumgang route. So this way is to Haegeumgang, or you can take a shortcut and then go to Naegeumgang and then go around. So this the red line is the kind of treatment
Thank you very much. Such a wonderful set of presentations. Could we give a round of applause?